Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in today a little bit more in depth on a relationship with a narcissist and to have a little bit of discussion about the dynamics, about the chemistry, about the harmony with these people or the apparent illusion thereof. Really, and how this relationship can be an apparently good fit or at least a satisfying of one of the parties' needs in the relationship. The one-sidedness is one of the topics that we want to look at and discuss today. And when we talk about really a relationship and the chemistry between a narcissist and somebody else, eventually that other person who is really going to get along well with this type of individual is someone, and I have a lot of viewers who ask, what is it going to be a successful relationship for a narcissist? Or, what happens if two narcissists get together? I mean, that's a whole nother video. But what I want to talk about today is the apparent connection, and really what a lot of people feel is that, the relationship can be fated or destined. It can just be part of the big plan, the big picture, what is meant for your life. So it is no, accident that you are here as well. So I just want to kind of put that out there, that this is a phenomenon at large. You are not alone in going through this. You are not alone in who you are. You're not alone in your truth. You're not alone in your authenticity and being free. So I want to advise you of that, So it is a shared experience. It is real. Healing is real. Being saved from the dark night of the soul is real. Being able to kind of pick up and seize opportunity is real. Making radical change in your life is real. All these things are real, truthful, authentic, not part of, getting sucked in, getting trapped, okay? I just want to advise you of that and then putting that out there for your understanding and your feeling and your spirit. When we are talking about a relationship with a narcissist, we're talking about someone who is inherently abnormally selfish. We all need to be able to take care of ourselves. If you're having trouble taking care of yourself, then you don't have enough ego or enough, healthy narcissist strength about yourself. You need to be able to flip that around and be able to take care of yourself and be able to put yourself first and not feel that you're denying somebody, you're not giving somebody enough attention, that you're not factoring in enough. You have to be feeling okay with taking care of yourself. And it seems like, wouldn't this be natural? Wouldn't this be normal? Wouldn't this be hardwired? Believe it or not, humans are entirely complex and complicated, which is very different, which takes us into where we're going to be heading in the next 5 to 7 years. If we can hold on for that, put our seatbelts on. But what I'm trying to explain is that if humans are very complicated. So, for example, we'll eat when we're not hungry. We'll starve when we are hungry. We will make casino bets and people will become addicted and then gamble away their homes, gamble away their family. I mean, we're just very complicated. Let's just leave it at that. So when we're talking about the chemistry between a narcissist, someone who is defined by a pathological sense of selfishness, in other words, everybody has to be kind of giving into them, laughing at, even giving of them attention. In other words, it's going to be disproportionate. And then based on this sense of entitlement then, which then become part of how they behave. So we've got kind of their mindset and then their behavior and then the outcome in relationships, sort of the stimulus and response, if you will, to talk about a lot of psychology, human behavior, social psychology, abnormal psychology, is to understand that, just sort of to get kind of an overview, just sort of a high level understanding, is that they have a pathological sense of self-importance and selfishness, which means that they feel, better than. Sure, they might have some things that make them intelligent, there might be things that allow people the opportunity to move forward, and then they work hard. We're not talking about that. We're talking about really somebody who has a pathological sense of self-importance, superiority, and then they have a lack of empathy, which means they have an inability to understand that there are other viewpoints, other needs, other angles, other positions, other ways of looking at things that really ultimately need to be factored in for a relationship to be able to work, for it to be able to go places, for it to be able to have a future, to be sustainable. And so they will then tend to attract people who are, as Dr. Craig Malkin says, who are echoists, who sort of have this open template within, who have a sense of altruism or selflessness, either by design or desire, where they then sort of become looking for people to be supportive to be encouraging to, which ultimately becomes enabling to. So there comes this sort of ebb and flow in the relationship where it can become, in other words, for someone who feels good by giving. And yes, I'll, pay for your education, or I will, be your support for this. They become just sort of, that becomes the way the relationship goes back and forth. And so one must sacrifice or be sort of, empty of self in order to really make it further on with this relationship. So you have to be, as Dr. Craig Malkin says, you have to be an echoist, just sort of echoing their strengths and always be validating them, that you sort of feel the invisible, and that all of a sudden the relationship sparks up when you're always talking about them. Their face lights up when you're talking about them, and you don't, ever get the same opportunity. Here's my pictures. When it comes to your pictures, I gotta go. I don't have time. Let's skip through that. Let's, they'll tell you how to show and share your pictures. Go faster. We've already seen that. Those are for deletion. So it becomes unequal. It becomes this inequality of power in the relationship. But people who are echoists, meaning supporters, the helpers, the people who enjoy giving, they take joy from giving to others. This, if you fall upon a healthy relationship, then oftentimes it'll be more balanced. It might have its ups and downs, but they won't be, really extreme. When you get into a relationship with a narcissist, you're looking at, this, it becomes a vast inequality. It becomes a vast, respect and then disrespect. It can be, you are all the giving and then you are deferred to nothing. You eventually feel this, dissolving into nothingness, or that the relationship is lacking substance. It's lacking glue. It's lacking a bond. It's lacking heart to heart. It's lacking that connection, and it is, going and then really into, a sad state of affairs, because the empathy of the other individual who becomes really, wanting the relationship to work is then empathetic to the needs of others. So do you see how someone who is empathetic, feeling their needs, i.e., I need you to be all about me, I need you to give to me, I need you to propagate and prop me up and always, stroke my ego, all that stuff, which can become inspiring, which it can feel like a real great relationship, if you're able to give and then be very selfish. I mean, next thing you know, you're signing off your insurance documents, they're the beneficiary of everything, and that you feel at least they're the beneficiary on my life insurance, so at least when I pass, they'll be getting $1 million or whatever it is. People can go very into that landslide. We're feeling like, at least if this, they'll get a lot from me and I will have left them this. And then what about you though? What have you been able to enjoy and be able to be sustainable in the relationship, or has it been completely lopsided and one-sided? So a relationship with a codependent, it can be and feel like a match made in heaven, which is why, this can take on that feeling of a forever relationship. It feels right. It's a good fit. Our chemistry, da 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 da. I need what you have. I have what you need. I mean, it can be very much like that. But in a relationship with a narcissist who, eventually the support person will begin to get a little weak, a little tired, a little bit craggy, a little bit fatigued, a little bit of, depleted, a little bit of depression, a little bit of inquiry. Why isn't this different? We've been at this for 5 years. Why aren't we at this level? Why aren't we at that level? It can go on for weeks, months, years, and decades in this sort of, in this play of chemistry, in this dance, in this sort of back and forth where, you end up sort of taking too much on, but it feels like the right thing to do in the name of love. This is how it's supposed to be. There are no other options. The narcissist will see a lot of options. The codependent won't be as privy to as much. They won't feel, they feel that they put all their eggs in the basket over yonder, and that, this is their relationship that they pivot on, that they always have one foot on. And that then when they find that the narcissist, they're, sort of show their true colors, that they see that there is a masked facade, or that they were looking out the window, out the back door, that their narcissistic daydream has brought them another job, another home, another marriage, another lifestyle, a second and third life that you weren't aware of, that they haven't communicated to you. And next thing you know, you're like, what? Are you kidding me? OMG, and you're like in a state of shock. You're trying to call everybody that you can think of in your phone to say, can you believe this? You need to step away from the fantasy. Step away. Like they used to say, when you were, step away from the whatever, step away from the counter. You were, going to do, step away from the fantasy. People, and in Facebook, I mean, I think that they spend too much time perhaps just going over other people's lives to the point where they don't have a life of their own. This becomes like, Dr. Craig Malkin, an echoist, meaning you're only feeling that your job, your role in relationships in life is to echo the support of others, to be filled up with the goals and aspirations and satisfying those of others, to the point where you're depleted, you're, absent of, you're in a deficit of. And then they wonder why the narcissist won't give like in return. You're not going to, and I think that's the conundrum, that's the confusion in relationships with the narcissist and the psychopath. The narcissist and the codependent. And yes, we did have a viewer to ask about the dance they're in. So if you're listening, I guess here we're answering this for you. I do read the comments, by the way, so thank you for your much. I don't respond because I would literally just be, responding. I don't have the time to respond to all the emails or the comments on the channel. So, but I do review. So let's, but anyway, I digress. So the echoists, so with them, they're taking satisfaction and fulfillment enough. So in other words, they feel good by giving, until they come to a point where they find out that they're not getting like in return. I think that's part of the two-way interaction that can become so painful, is that I sacrificed this for you. I did this. I have been sort of a giver to you, and that when it comes time in return for them to give to you, and the things that you did for them, they're oftentimes not available. The relationship has gone sideways or sour, and they're not there to do and be the same. They're not there to talk about your tough stuff. They're not there to talk about when you get sick. They're not there when you lose the job. They exit stage left when you express something that is real, that they all of a sudden go, uh-oh, and then they're all of a sudden absent. They just, sort of step out. And then you're like, we were just dating. We were just in a great relationship. We had a pattern. And then they just, all of a sudden they're not there when you get ill. They're not there when you're on tough times, So this can be very confusing because they're not there in like ways. So this can be very hurtful. It can also be to the point where you've put a lot of, in people who have empathy, so they've been very sensitive to the needs of others and then satisfying them, with very quick measure usually, and then absorbing and making that the focal point of their life. And that can work for some people, but when it's imbalanced, when it doesn't go the other way. So for example, it's just reminding me of, in a family relationship, when one person is the breadwinner and then the other person helps to manage, oftentimes, that can work both ways, but there has to be open, honest communication. But it doesn't, so in other words, a lot of times in a healthy relationship, that can actually work. And it can sometimes become dysfunctional or functional, but those situations work. Where it becomes problematic is when the narcissist is not there for you. They're like, you have a cold, you have a flu, you have this, and then they don't want to be associated with you. Or if you've lost your income. I see this a lot with the people who I talk to, especially, when we've had a lot of changes in the market or changes in the workplace, changes in the economy, when, that area where they worked is no longer, viable. People who might have worked in the printing area or the mortgage area or the insurance area, the real estate. So a lot of these industries took big hits and are taking big hits. So people, even though they might have been raised to the top of their profession, their company might have broke up. They're no longer able to earn the income, or they're on the job hunt. And then next thing you know, their spouse is like looking for a new relationship, looking for, and cheating, and they're not true to their vows. And then they're acting like, I don't even know you anymore. So there's a lot of hurtful dynamics. And it can go really, really awry and be very, very scary and very intimidating. And as viewers have said, it can be very daunting. But we're here to clear away that overwhelm. And let's just make sure you can see the next positive steps on your journey. So it will go from bleak to fulfilled, bleak to joy, depressed to energized, depleted to inspired. We want to flip and alchemize and metamorphosize that understanding, but you have to understand the chemistry of these relationships and how they are glued, but then how they can be devastating. So you need to step away from the fantasy and be okay to let go of that delusion or that illusion. Remember, those people who are codependent have a lot of empathy. Their mirror neurons, they will then adjust and become, even more pronounced in their codependency. So they'll become even more regressed. They will become even more docile. They'll become even more complicit. They'll become even more quiet. So you might have to really take stock of how you have been changed as a result of the relationship and go, wow, that was then, this is now. And then kind of do a quick U-turn on your journey and go from what I call nod thinking behavior, feeling and doing, negative orderly direction, meaning, disempowering, lack of esteem, lack of credibility. Your jar is empty. You're feeling worthless or valueless or undesirable, unattractive, because, what transpired in that relationship ain't flying no more. Wings have been cut. We ain't going up. It's smack dab, like a sack of potatoes. So with this, you have to understand, as we were saying, that chapter, which can become even like living someone else's needs. If your life has become living someone else's needs, that is like an echoist. If your life has been as sort of a reaction to somebody's needs. So if your life has been all about reactivity, jumping when they say jump, be quiet when they say be quiet, wear this when they say this, you're operating by that external locus of control that we talk about. And then those people who have a tendency, a penchant to be a control freak, for some reason they enjoy controlling others. Not me. I can entirely say I like being a leader. I like empowering. I like discussing things. But you're not going to want to see me wanting to exploit, to take advantage, and trying to control it and manipulate. That is just, a penchant that I don't have. So it's to understand that those relationship communication patterns can be manipulative in nature. And that they can lead and basically become like a relationship that's no longer viable. It can become like a job that's no longer got a job wanted list, and that is a good thing for you, even though you might feel lost. Is to say that that job has been phased out, or that role is phased out. That role is no longer healthy or viable. It's no longer out there, which can leave a lot of people like, oh my God, I got to go through a complete personality overhaul, makeover. I've got to reinvent myself. How am I going to do this? Don't worry about it. Don't go into the freak out. Just realize that some of these relationships are kind of like, might be long-standing influences, but you have to understand that oftentimes these relationships are meant to be. They're part of the design of your life. They are part of the journey. Don't realize you didn't mess it up. You ain't hurting. Just pick yourself up, with where you are, and where you're at, just be still there for a moment and just allow yourself to be. Stop the overanalyzing, the overthinking, especially if you found yourself in a relationship that doesn't work. Your inner censor is going to overtake your inner guide. Your inner censor is like the one that's filled with judgment, criticism, harsh words, and wants to have ruminating thoughts and just play this over and over and over and over. So literally, you're like watching one episode of your life just over and over. As if you were to watch on Netflix only one episode of one show, wouldn't you eventually be like, been there, done that, I got this one, let's go on to the next? You have to kind of feel, and be sensitive to yourself that you're replaying and living in the past is kind of like that, where you've already kind of gotten that episode. You might be a great fan of that episode. I mean, we've got people who have watched Star Wars for 120 times. They might have a movie that they can't get enough of, and they always get something new, and so you have to evaluate for yourself to what degree, do you want to watch only that one episode of your life, and to what degree, maybe it's one for the archives, it's important, it's a life changer, it's a box hit, box office hit for you. I mean, you have to understand that for yourself, but you also have to understand and being able to have a little bit of leverage on yourself, meaning power over yourself, to, I was sort of way too drawn in. I got sucked in. I got into a role that is not my best sitch. It is not my best energy. It is not, bringing me the wealth and the reality of relationships and taking me where I want to go in life. And that is okay. As I say, step away from the fantasy. Step away from the fantasy. That just came to me today. And it's like, it's okay to step away from the illusion. And a lot of these people, just love them for who they are. I think that'll make, that almost better. And don't be envious of their life. Don't be jealous of their life. Don't be pining for a life that's like theirs. Pine and be driven for a life that is like yours, like who you are and your strengths, and getting that locus of control back within. And that is okay. For a lot of people, they have not been allowed this experience. They have not been allowed, they have not been able to experience this with other people. They have not been allowed to be themselves, particularly people who are sensitive. Sensitive meaning, that's not right that you mistreat somebody. That's really wrong. It's just wrong. So you might have this feeling of you want to protect somebody from a hurt. You might be a very protective person if you're sensitive. I don't want this in. So you might have been very protective. You might have been very sensitive. You might have been impressionable to something. And that is very real. And that is very raw. And that is very authentic. And that is very much yours. So in the destined, part of the destiny and part of the fate is this relationship was just, it is part of the fabric of who you are, not only this other person. Everybody in the relationship, in the narcissist, they want to take a lot of time and talk about the narcissist. Let me find out how disordered they are. You can do that, but don't only, there's a lot of channels that people talk about where other people are, they're always angry at the narcissist, and it's this narcissist bashing, and that might be super popular, but yet you have to understand that what about you? What about what you can take away? What about your success? What about your clarity? What about you fixing things for yourself and getting that locus of control back over here? Excuse me, move it, that belongs over here. Take back your power, take back your strength, take back your I am. And it's time, because oftentimes people have not been allowed to be strong in relationships, because if they've been in relationships with a lot of pathological individuals, they're going to be, once again, narcissists are all about the take, the win. And so, you might have not been able to be strong in relationships. It might not have been permitted. Just like now we're seeing, this is going a little bit long and we'll wrap up here, but just like here in the US, once upon a time, we didn't have a lot of females in politics. They didn't have the opportunity. They didn't have the situation. They didn't have the role. And now we're getting a lot of female in the Senate. A woman's place is in the Senate. This is a change of times, and things are changing quickly. And so it's the same thing like for you. You might not have had the opportunity before. Maybe you want to go into politics. Maybe you want to go into religious studies. Maybe you want to go into fashion. Maybe you want to become a CEO. Maybe you want to become a leader. Maybe you want to become and start here and do this and rise up. So just because that was then, this is now, you need to go then full throttle into what I call pod thinking, positive, orderly direction thinking, feeling, and behaving, and giving credibility and power back to you. And know what that means and what that looks like on a gentle basis, which means you don't freak out, just try to, lose it and then, I'm going to do this. It's like, get excited. There are tools that we share here, and we're going to be going into more in depth on the tools and workshops and some of this interactive stuff that's very powerful, very effective, and will bring you great results. In fact, so powerful that people oftentimes don't stick with it because it so truly and really helps. But we're going to go there. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support. Have a beautiful day.